Hello, I'm Ronnie Eldridge. Welcome to Eldridge and Company. By now we know there are many challenges facing the news media, but I want to know how the news people feel about what's happening in their world and what they think about the future of journalism. My guest is Sarah Bartlett, the Dean of the Craig Newmark Graduate School of Journalism at CUNY. Welcome.
Thank you.
Your enrollment is up.
That's right. We're up quite a bit.
So that means people are very optimistic about the future, right?
I think they're realistic. It's clear that the economics of the industry are in terrible shape, but I think that people are passionate about journalism. I think the last few years politically in this country have shown how critically important it is to have a vibrant press. And I think young people are really captivated by that and really committed to, even if it means working 3 jobs and long hours, to doing the best that they can to keep it alive.
So it still is a passionate work with a deep belief in it.
Very much so.
Yeah, so we still have a fourth estate.
We do.
We need it.
We need it.
Anyhow, so your school started in, what, 2008, 2006? In the middle of this revolution in media and how it was going to be disseminated and what we were going to see. So was it easier for you to adapt to that than other journalism schools?
I think it really was. Becoming an institution in the middle of the transformation of the internet really changed our profession radically. And I think if you're a legacy journalism school with tenured faculty who grew up in a print environment, getting them to adapt and get work experience that was relevant to students, it's been much harder for other schools. We were very fortunate to be born in the internet age, and so the faculty who we hired from day one were digitally oriented and really committed to embracing technology. And I think that's been a tremendous asset for us. And also the fact that we kept the number of tenured professors to a relatively small number, and we recruited a lot of adjuncts who are working in newsrooms today. So our faculty are very of the moment and very cutting edge, and I think it's been a big asset for us.
How can a journalist these days support, that's such a stupid question, I don't want to get into trouble, but support what the administration does? Do you have any people who do?
We have faculty who feel very strongly about what's going on in this country, but we also have faculty who recognize that there's multiple points of view, and part of what we train our students to do is to be, even if we have opinions, which we all do, to be as fair as we possibly can to represent alternative points of view in our stories. Not necessarily on the one hand, on the other hand, but to understand that there's a 20–30% of this country that violently disagrees with the others, especially in New York City. So we make sure that our students are appreciative of that point of view.
And you have more material or ability to really find out from these people, don't you?
Fox News is a thing. It is. It's something. It's a place that has an audience, and not everyone. We're not going to agree with everything that they say, but we certainly want our students to be aware of it, and our faculty, I think, are appreciative of that.
So, just a brief summary of what happened in the business.
In terms of the economics?
Yeah.
The print advertising went away as more and more people flocked to the internet. You can get news for free. Digital advertising is a fraction of the value of print advertising. And so if you were a print publication, slowly your market died. Classified ads went the way of Craigslist and other organizations, eBay, and you don't have that intermediary effect anymore that advertising.
And the shopping, no, everything.
And so increasingly people are having to learn to pay for content if they want it. And I think it's interesting that newspapers, you're getting far more revenue now from circulation than from advertising.
Right, it is interesting.
But it's a collapse. I mean, we've lost half of the journalists in this country. Those jobs are gone.
And so the newspapers, as they had to contract, their value to the owners also changed. So there was a change in ownership, and it became less personal, less devoted. Right?
We've had consolidation, so you've got larger chains, and that's cut the sort of local ties that people were feeling. Right. But also you've had hedge funds come in for a period of time.
And so it's the bottom line.
And that has not worked out well for anyone.
But that's just the opposite of what is now happening with your journalists, and in journalism in general, it's so interesting. Your school has received an enormous amount of money. from Craig Newmark.
We recently were very fortunate to receive a $20 million endowment from Craig Newmark. And I think, you know, in addition to that, what we're also seeing is a real growth of new outlets that are nonprofit. And that's really been a change. We just launched something. I've been part of a group that's been very committed to seeing if there could be a new nonprofit news outlet that covers New York, because we've watched the Daily News cut their staff in half. We've watched as the New York Times has become a global-oriented paper. The Wall Street Journal, the Greater New York section is a fraction of what it used to be. DNA Info closed, Village Voice closed. So we wanted to see, could there be a new nonprofit news outlet like the Texas Tribune has proven in Texas, that it can really jump in and provide tremendously good coverage and at an economic model that works.
Was there a thought to doing that in LA also? I think I read something.
Oh, well, there's Voice of San Diego. There's other examples of this.
People are trying it.
But we've raised $8.5 million, some of it also from Craig Newmark, but from the Revson Foundation and from the Leon Levy Foundation and some of the individual donors that have stepped in. And we're going to hire 15 reporters and start covering New York in a very aggressive, accountable way.
So who is we?
We, in this case, is Julie Sandorf, who's the president of the Revson Foundation, Dick Ravitch, who, as everyone knows, former lieutenant governor, former chairman of the MTA. The three of us have been building towards this, and now we've got a full board chaired by Ben Smith, who's the editor of BuzzFeed, and an advisory board full of some of the city's top journalists from the New York Times and ProPublica, Chalkbeat, you name it. So it's a very exciting venture, and we haven't launched yet. We've just announced, and we're starting to hire. It's very exciting.
And has it got a place of business?
We're going to be partnering with New York Magazine, so they'll be distributing it as a content vertical on their website. They're going to be helping us with their back-end system, their content management system. We haven't got office space yet. We're looking for offices. Yeah, we're not there yet. We're parked briefly at New York Magazine while we find space large enough for the staff.
And then how do you picture it?
Well, it's called The City, and we haven't seen a logo yet. We haven't designed the website. It'll be digital only, no hard copy. Very visually oriented, very much about civic engagement, so getting out into the neighborhoods. It's really meant to be sort of the working person's news source, the way that the Daily News used to be, very hard-hitting, holding public officials accountable. It's going to be an exciting venture. Very diverse newsroom, very committed to making this look like a newsroom that reflects our city.
It'll be quiet newsroom, right? Not the old-fashioned.
Well, hopefully people will be out in the field.
Not smoke-filled.
Not smoke-filled. We don't do that anymore.
And how do you see the future? I mean, more people coming in to write about things that haven't really been covered before, more diversity?
You're talking about in this new city venture or
news,
broadly?
Just generally, in your school, in this news system, all over.
So one of the things that I love about our school that I think really does make us quite different is the diversity of the students who attend. So we're a very affordable journalism program. I think we're one of, if not the most affordable in the country. It's a very diverse group, but we have about 26% who are African American, about 17% who are Hispanic, and about 10% who are Asian American. We have several Native Americans in the student body, and we get contacted all the time by employers who are realizing how impossible it is to run a newsroom that isn't reflective of the communities they're trying to serve and to reach. So I think we've got the only bilingual graduate journalism program in the country. And so we have a special concentration of people who are focusing on covering Latin American communities and Hispanic communities around the country, bilingual. So not only do they have to know how to shoot video, write well, report well, apply all the legal and ethical standards, but they have to do it in 2 languages. And so putting those people into the field and seeing how they're getting snapped up immediately upon graduation, that's exciting, and I think it will change newsrooms. We have another program that we call our social journalism program, which is really about, instead of top-down journalism where editors are deciding from their last night's dinner party what they think is the important issue of the day, we've got a much more of a grassroots approach where people are embedding in communities and figuring out what are the information needs of that community and how do we use social media and technology to address those information needs and really build more civic engagement.
And you have people who come from other countries.
A little bit, not as much as other journalism programs.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because we're so affordable, we tend to have more domestic students
Oh,
applying.
interesting.
I think if you're an international student, you may go to a place that's maybe better known. We're still establishing our brand. And now it's not just the CUNY Graduate School of Journalism, it's the Craig Newmark Graduate School of Journalism, so it makes it a little bit more complicated.
Yeah. And would you consider the new nonprofit a platform?
No.
What is a platform?
Well, when you think about platforms in our lexicon, we're talking about Facebook, we're talking about Twitter, we're talking about Instagram, we're talking about Snapchat, tools that individuals are using to communicate with each other. So the tech platforms, I mean, Google would be part of that too, although it's less of a sort of direct person-to-person communications tool.
But you are going to be communicating with others.
We're a news outlet.
Yeah.
And news outlets don't generally get considered platforms.
I always thought, and way before we had all this digital stuff, I always wanted to have a printer on a corner of, every couple of blocks where you could tear off your latest edition. And I can see now with your news thing that you could do that. Right?
Well, it's on your phone.
That's true.
It's
the phone.
Yeah, everybody's, we'll be mobile first.
All right, so let's talk about the audience.
Yes.
We were talking about that before. Television, what's its future?
It's so interesting what's happening in television. It's still probably the most viable economic corner of our profession, and yet our students don't view it, they don't have televisions, they don't have connections to cable operators. If they're watching TV, they're watching it on their laptops or on their phone. So they love visual content. Our visual journalism department is very strong. I'd say over 2/3 of our students are in classes that have to do with creating video that is news oriented, whether that's 20 seconds that they're putting on social media or a 10-minute documentary or standard TV, local TV news. That is something that still is very viable from an economic standpoint, but the way that it's being consumed is just totally changed. So the traditional news entities like 60 Minutes, if you look at the demographics, they tend to trend pretty old. It's yours and my generation are those who are watching it, and I think
different generations.
Different generations, but 60 and up, 60 and up. And I think that it's going to be, that's what every news entity is looking at in the TV world, is how do we get the young people to watch?
I remember my first job after college was at CBS, and we didn't have a television set at home. So here I was working at CBS, and then we finally got a television set, so I could recognize some of the people in the elevator, right? So it's such a long arc of different experience.
CBS is an interesting example because they have something called CBSN, which is their live stream, and so there are different people now working on what does live TV look like in a streaming setting, and who are the people, and that is because you can watch that on your phone. And so that's a completely different orientation, and I think there's a lot of experimenting. So Vice News, which has a show on HBO now, that is very popular. But it's interesting, people in our school don't like doing a lot of studio work. They want to be in the field. They feel that there's more authenticity. You're not so much seeing the stand-up with the voice of God. There's really a change in the way that TV news is being created.
And cable? Now, cable news, though, has had a rise.
Yeah, CNN is, and MSNBC, those are
NBC is the leader now, isn't it? I think so.
Well, I think the evening shows, have really driven.
It's all due to Trump.
Well, there's the Trump bump. It's certainly helping. He labeled us the enemy of the people, and I'm sure he didn't intend for this to be helpful to us, but in fact, in certain quarters it has been. It's increased the revenue of certain cable channels, and I'm sure it's had an impact on journalism school applications. People are really there to defend the profession.
Did you ever think you'd live to see the day where the media would be the enemy of the people?
No, and I have to say it so saddens me, and I think that it's increased the level of violence and antagonism. I mean, our students are encountering much more difficult situations when they go out into the field, and it's to live in a democracy and to feel that this is what it's come to, it's pretty sad.
It's really terrible, isn't it? Yeah. So now, the iPhone.
Yes.
That has become the magical thing, huh? Is
Every-
that the
we-
item of the future?
Well, we require our students to have a laptop and an iPhone, and I think increasingly, yeah, phones. Especially, it's interesting, Apple just came out with their new range of iPhones, and they're all going a little bit larger, and I feel like there's going to start to be a blurring between
They're coming down. Right.
laptops, iPads, and phones.
Right.
It's just, you're basically going to, until we get the chip in the brain, yeah.
How do you adjust personally to all of this?
Not as well as I should. Not enough hours in the day.
Yeah.
It's hard to try to keep, I try to go to classes and sit in. Last week I was in a drone journalism class because we're teaching our students how to use drones as a way to capture video from an aerial standpoint. And I was told, I learned in the class that CNN has something like 30 people who have their pilot's licenses. And so our students are actually going to be taking the exam to see if they can get the pilot license, which will, you add that to your resume, right? Not only am I good at Snapchat and I'm good at, Pro Tools, all this different softwares applications that one can use.
But it's a drone license,
It's
not
a pilot
flying.
license for flying a drone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's hard to find places where you can use a drone legally, but a lot of those regulations are being challenged as journalists increasingly find ways to apply that to their work. So staying on top of it, it helps to be in a school because I am surrounded by people who are much smarter than I am and who are paid to learn the latest tools and incorporate them into our curriculum.
Are people interested in investigative reporting?
Very much so. We have about 10 courses on our books in investigative reporting, and I'd say definitely more than half of our students have taken at least one class before they graduate in investigative journalism.
And how does that adapt to?
Well, I think that certainly social media, learning how to reach a broader array of sources using social media tools. Data journalism is a very important part of the curriculum now. Everyone needs to know how to access databases and scrape them so that you can identify trends and pick out stories using data journalism techniques. But at the same time, it's good old-fashioned shoe leather reporting. There's nothing that beats that. Tom Robbins is our investigative journalist in residence, and everyone who knows him from the Village Voice knows that that's what he was known for. We have recently been able to get some fellowship arrangements with places like Frontline and the Marshall Project. We have strong relationships with ProPublica. So we require our students to do a summer internship for at least 2 months. And so having them work in places like that, it really helps enhance their experience. And then when they graduate, they can do a year, if they apply and are admitted, they can do a year-long fellowship in a place like that.
So is there any age limitation? Do you have to be a certain age?
You don't.
To be able to?
You don't. I mean, our average age is 27, but I've been impressed with how many, we have people in their mid-40s or early 50s. We've had people in their mid-60s.
And they adjust to it all?
If they want to. There's no limitation. You have to be open-minded, and there's no age limitation to open-mindedness. You're a great example of that.
I have to come. Maybe
Yes,
I can take a
you should
class.
come and take a class. We have actually something called J+. It's our professional development unit. And we started a couple of years ago. We offer evening workshops and weekends so that some of our previous graduates, where Snapchat didn't exist 3 years ago, they can come back and learn how to use Snapchat as a journalist. So those are very affordable. They could be $20, $30, $40 for a workshop. And it's a way to keep retooling this next generation of journalists because it's really hard to keep up.
The saddest thing for me is that I think the future of being able to, when you wake up, have a cup of coffee and still stay on your bed and read the paper.
As long as you can read it on an iPad or a phone, you're fine.
Yeah, but
It's not the
touching
same.
and
I
having
still
the
get my
wrinkle,
paper
there's
delivered to my door.
We've been so brought up with it, but there will be generations who will never have seen it. right?
Definitely, definitely.
That's so-
Magazines may last a little longer.
But they're in trouble too, aren't they?
Everybody's in trouble.
Yeah.
The entire profession is in
Right.
trouble, sure.
So the future, you think, is going really into nonprofit or large people who've made a lot of money and want to do something good? I mean, I'm thinking of Bezos with the Post.
I think you're seeing
and Time
consolidation.
Magazine,
yeah. Mark Benioff from
right.
Salesforce
So
just
it
bought
becomes
Time.
almost foundation and
Well, there were
philanthropic.
periods of time when, Hearst, I mean, we've seen robber barons
That's
come
true.
in the
That's true.
past and own. I think Bezos is a great example. The Washington Post it's doing great work, and they've hired more journalists.
Right.
The fact that the Sulzberger family is standing behind the New York Times is really important. I'm on the board of the Lenfest Institute for Journalism in Philadelphia, and we own the Philadelphia Inquirer in a nonprofit model. And we're working really hard at the Institute there to look at business models that can make local journalism more sustainable. I'm working with the American Journalism Project, and their goal is to raise $50 million to pour into nonprofit journalism outlets across the country to help get those started. So I think that in some ways, this is an incredibly exciting time. It's both scary and disturbing, but it's also incredibly exciting. And you seeing people really rise to the occasion and say, this is important to our society. We have to pour our resources. Craig Newmark just put $20 million into a new publication called The Markup, which is focusing on the tech platforms and making sure that how they use algorithms and how they distribute stories is something that investigative journalists are taking a hard look at. So people are really standing up, and I think it's going to get better, not worse.
And Craig Newmark comes from Craigslist.
He's the founder of Craigslist.
So when he founded Craigslist, who was he?
He was a software engineer who lived in San Francisco and was looking for a way to build community. He was a relative newcomer to the city and wanted to pass on information that he'd found about the city, and it turned into something that I think he had never expected. And now he's amassed a personal fortune in his foundation, and he's trying to put it to good use. I have great respect for him.
Eternally grateful, right? It's wonderful.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. It's so the future will. If I wanted to watch a national convention, I'm going to have to look on my phone.
If you don't have an iPad or a laptop, I think yes. Yeah. I think that you should expect that. It's going to be very mobile. It's going to be very accessible.
Will we have family availability? I mean, part of it is watching sometimes with a group.
I have a big TV at home, and I love the live. I think it'll be more live events, like a convention,
or
sporting
you can connect
events.
your laptop to a TV screen.
You can do that right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
I don't think that. I think there's huge consumption for media. I don't think that there's any lack of evidence. There's no evidence that consumers aren't eager to consume media. If anything, there's a fire hose coming at you with almost too much. It's noisy. And what's challenging is how do we learn to package that better, to differentiate brands so that you can start to pick and choose and find what you need. And what's the economic model going to be that supports it? I think it's going to be a combination of things. I don't think it's any single answer. You're going to have nonprofits, you're going to have single owners, you're going to have ecosystems where people start to partner more and divvy it up. So maybe we don't need 16 people covering Albany. Maybe we only need 6, but they're going to share in a pool fashion. I think people are starting to figure it out, but there's no need. I mean, no one is saying we don't need news, right?
We want more people to say it, actually.
And we want it to be relevant to communities that have frankly been very underserved.
Right.
I mean, we work a lot with immigrant populations in the city, and there's an amazing array of immigrant press in New York, and they get completely ignored in this equation, and yet they have built a real trust with their audience, and they're trying to figure out how to make their weekly newspapers transition to a digital space.
So will they be part of your
They are.
nonprofit
Definitely. We work with them at the school. We have a Center for Community and Ethnic Media, and we work with them. The Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment gave us $1 million grant to spend the next 5 years training them in digital tools. So we're definitely trying to incorporate those voices and that perspective into both our new nonprofit news outlet, but also more generally into the city of New York and the coverage.
I love the fact that you're housed in the old building that the Herald Tribune used to be in. So you see this whole tradition, don't you, coming, it's going way
we have a sort of,
up into the sky.
We have a shrine, we call it, where we have old artifacts from the Herald Tribune. And People over time have given us things. So, for example, the LA Times had this amazing collection of old typewriters, which we've now encased in sort of jewel boxes. And so I think we have good bones. And we're right next door to the New York Times, so that doesn't hurt either.
The other thing that got birthed basically from there was New York Magazine. So it's nice that that's going ahead to the nonprofit, isn't it?
Yeah, no, we're excited.
So do you have tours? Have you ever?
You know, that's a great idea. I mean, we give tours to, like, the State Department will say that there's a group of journalists visiting from Korea, and so we do that. We do admissions tours, obviously, for applicants.
Yeah, but you should, when you launch your nonprofit in the neighborhoods, you should really give tours so people can see where it all comes from and how it's done.
It's a good idea.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. And thank you very much for coming. And lots of good luck. It just sounds so fantastic.